Good afternoon, and welcome back to What Matters Gulf Coast. We certainly hope that you had a blessed and happy Thanksgiving. We have a lot to be thankful of, and sometimes it helps us to stop and take the time to thank our higher being for the blessings that have been passed down on us. We're glad to have you back. We're going to go on and get started with our show. And today we have a presenter who has a very appropriate topic she's going to talk with us about. Our presenter for today is Miss Aisha Davis-Williams, and she's going to talk about volunteerism and some other things as well. She is a social worker and she is employed with Franklin Primary Health Care. She has spent over 20 plus years of experience in providing social work services to the underserved and indigent population in the southern region of Alabama. But her greatest passion is volunteerism within the Black community. Her work experience includes, but is not limited to, work with sickle cell disease, the aging population, medically at risk populations, and persons living with HIV/AIDS. She is a native of Mobile and understands the inner workings and how to navigate systems within this community in order to get to the help to those who need it. Please wish our today's guest, Miss Aisha Davis-Williams, to What Matters Gulf Coast program. Miss Davis-Williams.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. I am so glad to be here with What Matters Gulf Coast. And Ms. V, if you don't mind, I just really want to talk about. I'm so glad that we're in this new season.
Yes.
This new season. We're almost on the other side of COVID-19. It's been some hardship. But even for my personal experience of dealing with trauma as a Black female,
Yeah.
I have a great passion, and most people will tell you, even in the healthcare community, that when I discuss healthcare needs, I incorporate mental health in there as well.
Exactly.
You can't take care of the body without taking care of the mind.
Exactly.
And so today we're going to just discuss about guarding our mental health during the holidays and beyond.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
When we talk about mental health, especially in the Black community, it has often been stigmatized, a lot of shame, and this has been in our culture for many years. And because of that shame, so many of us are walking around even to today with that mask on.
Yes.
Pretending like everything is okay while we're still suffering inside. We are a resilient community. And we have been taught that if you can go all the way back to the days of slavery. I have recently just been digging into trauma because, as you stated in the introduction, one of my passions is volunteering in the community.
Yes.
And I come across so many children that are just beginning to live life, and they're already being raised in a traumatic environment.
Mm-hmm.
And then we wonder why our communities are like they are.
Yes.
Okay. So in that, I just really started focusing on trauma. And I was looking at this it was in the psychological magazine that I was reading, and it talked about the Black culture, but just how we even start off in our parents' room dealing with trauma, because you inherit the trauma that your parents or that your mother has gone through.
Yeah.
Then we come and we move into communities that have been systematically designed for people of color. And then we wonder why our children are facing dealing with traumas. Okay? Those traumas then go on to adulthood, because guess what? They're not being addressed. Okay? You know, it's just like I remember in my household, it was always what's done in the house, stay in the house. I don't know if you remember that, Miss V, but I remember being taught that you couldn't talk about what was really going on.
Oh, no.
And so I'm going to really even talk about a little bit about myself and why I'm so passionate about this discussion, and why I'm often telling people it's okay to not be okay. Sometimes when I see Facebook postings, even on the national news, we see our children committing suicide.
Yeah.
And you kind of think, what can make a child commit suicide? But I can tell you, even as a 47-year-old woman, I was a depressed child. I always said, if those barriers weren't put in place in our community, because there are such things as healthcare disparities and barriers for Black folk trying to seek treatment. Even though my mom knew something was wrong, she was too afraid to go and for me to go and receive psychiatric care, because she was too afraid they was going to overdiagnose me. It was that fear. My mom came up during the time right before it happened before her, but the Tuskegee experiment, if you remember that. And that birthed a big mistrust in our culture. So my mother was afraid, being in Alabama, to take her child to get some help. I was very, very depressed and did not know why. I remember saying this, and I'm just trying to bring some realness to this, because so many of us see things like this and say, how can that child be depressed? What happened? Oh, they must have been abused. I can tell you, I've never been physically or sexually abused.
Yes.
Okay? But it was up here.
Yes.
Okay? Other traumas, and sometimes it could just be us seeing different things.
Yeah.
Me going through therapy now, I kept telling my therapist, I said, I don't know, I'm just such a reactionist person. I always reacting. But then when I started digging into my childhood and remembering the struggles, the financial struggles in the household.
Yeah.
Some of the uncertainties, and seeing how my mother react to things, it was a learned behavior. But it's also a stressor. Okay? Because the brain automatically says, it doesn't say think through the process, it says react. And that ignites stimuli, nervousness. Okay? But I can remember as a child just praying at night and saying that old prayer that we were taught, now lay me down to sleep. I pray the Lord my soul to keep. If I should die before I wake, I pray the Lord my soul to take.
Yeah.
At the end of my prayer, I said, please, God, take me in my sleep. I wanted to die so bad. I just wanted peace. I was tired of my mind doing this constantly. Okay? But I thank God for a church. At that time, I was raised in Baptist church, and they were real sticklers about suicide. You don't commit suicide. If you commit suicide, you're going to hell. I didn't want to go to hell. Yeah. So today, at 47 years old, I thank God for that fear that the church put in me. Because if not for that fear, I would not be here today.
Yeah.
Okay. And living today with a sense of peace. See, it's the beautiful thing is when we learn to take off that mask and start dealing with what's up here, that it's okay that I'm not okay.
Yes. Yes.
Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Stressors, trauma breeds depression, anxiety, and if it's untreated, just like everything else, you're going to implode.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Like a ball. You're going to burst.
Yes.
Okay? You're going to burst. That's just like, you know, or I say this, you know, to me it's, you know, I'll say this. If I come to you, Miss V, and I say, you know, I'm diagnosed with high blood pressure, you're going to tell me, Aisha, make sure you get together, go lose some weight. You know, I mean, you're going to tell me a little nice, but, you know, eat right, take care of yourself and this and that. But why can't we do that when a person say, I'm just not feeling good today?
Yeah.
I hear so many people saying, oh, it's just going to be all right. Just pray on. Sometimes we got to learn a little bit more.
Yes. Yes. Mm-hmm.
God put doctors in place to tell us and give us medication for our high blood pressure. So what's wrong for me to take some medication if need be for my mental health?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Why should I suffer?
Mm-hmm.
Because it's taboo. Mm-hmm. I'm not normal. I'm not okay. I was so glad, like, you know, it's been probably about 15 years for me. And I actually did have to hit a spiritual and emotional bottom for me to get together. And I finally had gotten to that point where I said, I don't care what nobody else thinks. I need help.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Because, you know, I was raised in that household where it says, my father told me, and many of us was taught like that. It was weak to cry. It was weak to show that sign of that you ain't got it together.
Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But when I look, by me working in the healthcare field, and one of the reasons why I worked in the healthcare field for so long, because I see so many healthcare disparities when it comes to people of color.
Yes.
Okay? So I'm a big advocate on that, in that realm. However, I started looking at diseases. And all of the diseases that impact people of color, heart disease, diabetes, high blood pressure, we can go on and on. One of the common denominators is stress. It's stress. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
We got to take care of this.
Yes.
And many of us are walking around stressed and saying we are okay. Mm-hmm. Especially coming on the other side of COVID. And we're not through it yet.
Yep.
Many of us are still walking around here paranoid, scared, anxious. Am I going to be next?
Mm-hmm.
Many of us are still dealing with grief.
Yes.
From losing our loved ones.
Yeah.
And when we lose our loved ones, you know, it's a process. Mm-hmm. We go through the burial, we go through the ceremony, all of that. That's important for us as a people, right? Many of us didn't get that opportunity during COVID.
Yeah.
So have we really actually gone through our processes?
Okay. No.
We just kept going on. I looked at a study last week where it showed that during COVID, African Americans lost people two times greater than our counterparts, than Caucasians. Okay, and yes, we can attribute it to healthcare disparities. We can, but that's a problem. That's a problem. But instead of us digging into that, more so what I want to talk about, Ms. V, is how do we take care of ourselves? Mm-hmm. Me as a person just being out, always helping others, I always tell people, you can't help people unless you know how to get some help.
Yes.
Because the helper will burn out as well. Mm-hmm. Okay? Especially during times such as these, during the holidays. I lost both parents back to back within a year and a half of each other. And this was way over 10 years ago. And I'll never forget, and I'm not even much of a drinker, but every season, because I always will say, oh, this is what my family did. We all work, you celebrate, you drink, you have fun. It's the holidays. But what I noticed year after year, I was drinking more and more and more.
Yes.
And to the point, the next day I'm out of it. And I was like, I've never drank like this. Every year I'm drinking and crying my heart out. I had become a pitiful drunk. And I started thinking, and I said, Aisha, you still haven't dealt with the death of your parents.
Yeah.
You just picked up and kept going on. I'm the oldest of two. A lot was left in my lap for us carrying on and making sure that everything went forth, which was what was instructed by my father. And I never really sat down and said, I am not okay.
Yes. Yes.
Even with the holidays, stress, one of the main indicators of stress and depression and stuff like that is bad spending habits. What do we do when we don't feel good, especially as women? We love to go shopping.
Yes.
Buying something or doing something to make the outside feel good. And then after January, you're in a whole bunch of debt. Now you're stressed out about that.
Yes.
Okay. The holiday season is a great time of the year. And the reason why I say it's great, even though statistics reveal that so many Americans struggle with mental health and mental well-being during the holidays.
Yes.
Because of some of the things that I just discussed. You're thinking about family. Some people are lonely. Some people are not in relationships, or not even in good, productive relationships. The financial component of it. It's a spending season. Because even on Thanksgiving, you're not buying gifts, but you had to go out there and buy a lot of food.
Yes.
So it's still that time of year, but what I always tell people to focus on, let's start focusing on the materialistic things of it and focus on the positives. And those are some of the things that I do on the daily basis.
Yes.
As a person that suffers from depression, and I thank God that I have not had any depressive episodes in a long time. That's because self-maintenance. And when I say a long time, I can honestly say a couple of years. I have not dealt with depression.
Good.
My house is no longer dark.
Good.
Okay. And I'm saying I was operating like this even as a woman going to work and a social worker and helping other folk, but I was still suffering. Yes. Okay. I had actually at one point, I'm gonna tell you how severe it was. I put black Glad bags up to my windows because I didn't want any light in my house. Besides when I turned the light on. Yes. But it wasn't until I started healing that I realized, hey, you have to let some sun in.
That's right.
But that's the main indicator. I tell people all the time, if I come in your house, it's dark. What's wrong? Sunlight is healing. It's a natural healing agent.
Exactly.
Okay. I was dealing with depression. Diagnosed with anxiety. And diagnosed as an adult with ADHD.
Oh, okay.
So that means as a child, but see, now I understand why when I was in school and I used to get those report cards and says has no self-control. Yeah. Now I know why.
Okay.
But I made good grades. Now they say she's smart, but she just bad. Yeah. And I got many spankings. Yeah. Okay. But I will say this, as an adult and knowing that I had that diagnosis and that issue, it was like taking a ton of bricks off my shoulders.
I bet.
Because now I understood as well While when I go to a conference, I was falling asleep or couldn't stand there over an hour. I mean, literally, I'm that person. If a meeting go over an hour, you're going to lose me.
Yeah.
You know, but see, now I know that that's part of my mental. So anytime I go into a meeting now, for those people who know me, I always sit in the front so I can pay attention.
Yes.
That's behavior modification.
Yeah.
Even though we may be diagnosed with anything, health, illness, physical illness, there are sometimes medication is necessary.
Yes. Yes.
Sometimes if you catch it early enough, you can do some behavior changes. That's just like with high blood pressure. You know, before you actually diagnose, they'll say, okay, hey, well, you're on the borderline. That means get it together.
Yes. Yeah.
Employ some exercise into your daily routine. I was diagnosed with high blood pressure, not when I was this size. When I was a very young woman at the age of 23, wore size 8, and I was diagnosed with high blood pressure.
Okay.
Okay. And put on medications. And now that I've gained weight, I've been put on some more medication.
Yeah.
Okay. Because that's what happens when we don't manage what's going on physically or mentally. It gets worse. I can say now in my life, because I've become smarter and wiser, I'm more stable.
Yes.
Okay. But it's easier to catch it on the front end. And that's why I'm so glad that we're having this discussion today, because so many of us are living and we're going on with stress, a little anxiety. But if we start paying attention now, we can catch it before it gets really, really bad.
Exactly.
Because if you don't deal with the anxiety early on and deal with the stress, then comes what we talked about, the panic attacks and, you know, and all the other stuff, where you will need a medication regimen. Yeah. Okay. Our mind and our body, Ms. V, is intimately connected. Intimately connected. You can't take care of one without taking care of the other. So even for myself, you know, I try to get in at least 30 minutes of exercise, at least 4 to 5 days a week. And I didn't start doing it because of the weight. I started doing it because of this. Actually, I feel better.
Yes. Yeah.
I feel better. One decision that I needed to make is that I knew I wanted to continue to do the work that I'm doing. I love helping people. That's what helps me get outside of myself. But I said, Aisha, if you're not good for anyone else.
Exactly.
You know, dealing with grief is a big one. And I come back to that, and I hate to seem like I'm just kind of bouncing back and forth, Ms. V, but I come back to the grief part of it because I think more of us are dealing with that than we're talking about. Yeah. I recently did a seminar with a group, and after I got through talking, it was so amazing to me how many mothers came up to me talking about losing their children. Yes. You know, how many others just came up saying, I'm hurting, but I didn't feel okay to say that I was hurting. Yeah. Okay. So don't think you're suffering alone. Don't think you're suffering alone. You know, I tell my employees this all the time, you know, because we deal with a chronically ill population. Yes. And I say, first of all, you got to make sure you're taking care of you. Now, let me say this. Many of us are listening. Some will take heed. Some will process it in the back of their mind. I always think information like this is good information because when you're ready, you'll pull it back up. Yes. I went to counseling. I've had 3 different counselors in my life. And honestly, my mom tried to send me to counseling in high school, and I just used to take the car and keep riding because I wasn't ready. So a lot of times we're not ready to deal with us. Exactly. Okay. And that's understandable. That's okay. Okay. But still try to get to that point. And life will show up and get you to that point where you have to, if you want to get healthy.
Exactly.
If I knew what I knew, I told someone this last week, Miss V, they would say, oh, I'm 30 something and I'm getting old. I say, honey, it gets greater when you 40.
Yeah.
I wish I knew and had the wisdom at this age that I do now in my 20s. I would have had a good life. I'm just getting to the point due to me willing to get some help. Okay, willing. And I tell people, I go around it all the time. I say, I have a therapist. I go every month.
Yes.
Okay. And my therapist even discussed with me. She said, Miss Williams, you are actually doing great. You don't need to come. You don't. This is what she said. Let me go back. She didn't say I didn't need to come. She says I'm one of two of her low maintenance clients. Okay. I asked her if I could come every 2 months instead of every month. I said, because I'm taking up space from somebody that really could benefit more. Exactly. She said, no, it's a such thing as maintenance. Because what we do, we are creatures of habit.
Yeah.
So if I'm going all the time, when the sky fall out, it's not going to be a hard task for me to pick up and say, hey, I need help.
Yes.
But I can't tell you how many people that have called me when, I'm not going to say it's too late, but I'm thinking to myself, and I would dare not help them, but why did you wait until the crisis hit? It makes it harder.
Yes.
And I'm talking about regular people, our everyday to day people.
Yeah.
So my whole thing is, I don't even say I'm guarding my mental health. I say I'm guarding my mental well-being. Yes. It's important for me to be okay.
That's right.
If I'm not okay, then nobody's okay. I also wanted to talk, Ms. V, about some things that we can do to protect ourselves, to guard ourselves, even during this time, and I discussed some of the stuff that I've already employed in my daily regimen. Exercising. One of the other things, eating differently. You'll be so amazed how food gives you different energy and make you feel different ways.
Yeah.
Okay. So being intentional about the kind of meals or the food that we're putting in our bodies. Getting enough rest. I used to be one want to stay up all night, watch TV. Then I wonder why the next morning I don't want to get up and go to work. Or that I'm having a bad day even when I get to work. So I shut down early.
Yeah.
Because I rise early. Making sure that you're getting enough rest. And sometimes getting enough rest or getting in the bed does not mean going to sleep. It means just shutting down. Okay? Shutting down. Engaging in healthy activities, calming activities. Let me get real with the audience, because I'm going to talk a little bit about myself. Before I ever, came back and got back in the church, and, I'm older now, I'm a grandmother. I love the streets.
Yeah.
I love to ride. I love to, I used to like to have fun. But a lot of that stuff can be negative energy. Okay? I'm not saying I have a good time. I still have a good time. But I choose the environments in which I go and have those good times in.
Yes.
Okay? Negative energy breeds more negative energy.
Yes.
So setting realistic goals and expectations for yourself, especially during these holidays. Okay. I thank God that he blessed me with a little financial increase. I'm talking about myself. But don't be a fool, Aisha, and go out there and do no extra spending. When you know you have certain goals and that you set for or established for yourself. There's certain things that I want to do in 2023, long as God see fit. Getting myself in debt is not one of them.
Yes, that's right.
Okay. So I'm gonna be honest with you. As much as I like online shopping and Black Friday and them deals been popping up on my social media accounts, I've had to say no. I've had to say no. Okay. Keeping track of holiday spending, stay within your budget. Make peace with things that you want to accomplish. Even for myself, because I am not perfect. I was harboring some issues with a friend that I actually said I was done with. And I sent him a message. But I'm going to tell you how it was so good. It was such a blessing because we weren't talking just because of a misunderstanding.
Yes.
Through text. And when we had that discussion, so much of weight just lifted off of me. Even during Thanksgiving, I said, Lord, I thank you for allowing me to be humble enough and to put aside my stubborn ways. Because I needed it more than that person needed it.
Yeah.
So really thinking about what this season is truly about. Being humble, having some gratitude, being thankful for the little bit. We always want to look at the glass all the way full. Hey, sometimes let's look at it right here. Hey, I was here, but now I'm here.
Exactly.
And I thank God for it. Okay. And I don't mean to get religious because, I'm just a person. I do believe in a higher being. It's something greater than me.
Yes.
Now, we can call him whatever you want to call him. Okay. But he is good, and I am so grateful and so thankful that I'm not where I was. And if it was not for employing the things that we've discussed today, I wouldn't be here.
Yeah. Yeah.
I really want to emphasize this with my parents. Pay attention to your children. They are enduring so much. We already talk about bullying, but now we've raised them in a society where Jordans are important.
Yeah.
What you have on is important. The new device that I really couldn't afford to buy you is important. We need to start really teaching what is important in our lives.
Yes.
I had a senior parent, and I'll never forget, she came to me, and this was maybe about 2 Christmases ago. I was working in a different arena, but I was able to get her adopted. But it kind of frustrated me after I was talking to her because I have a really great relationship with my consumers. I try to, and I want them to feel comfortable. But after getting her adopted, and I'm knowing you're living on a fixed income, you telling me that you have 3 grandbabies and you were trying to give all of them $300 for Christmas. But you was just talking about your bills or your lights was going to get cut off. Okay? We got to get back to what's important, being realistic, because that's not good for that child. I mean, literally, that's not good for that child, because what you're, even as a young child, you're getting that child adapted to, this is the expectation.
Yes.
That I'm supposed to get $300. I was just so in awe, especially with someone that I know income doesn't meet that, I didn't start giving my daughter $300 since she became an adult. And I was working a decent job. You understand what I'm saying?
Yes.
Within your guidelines. You know, I grew up in that era, and I think part of my depression was, you know, due to that. It was popular for us to have Jordans and to do all those things. And I'll never forget when I couldn't get them, crying. And actually started doing things that I didn't need to do to get them.
Yeah.
Because I'm trying to keep up. But one thing I did do with my daughter in raising her, I let her know Jordans wasn't important. Them other $50 Nikes was just as good. Yeah. Or even if I can't afford that $20 Nike, as long as you got a good pair of shoes on your feet.
Exactly.
But so, you know, we think we're doing good and we're doing more damage. But I will say this: when you birth a child, they don't give us a parenting manual 101.
No.
We just have to wing it. But we should be better stewards in how we are raising our children, because these children will be our future adults. And just as we're suffering and we're dealing with our mental health issues and our mental well-being, they are too. It starts as a babe. So please, guys, you know, pay attention to your children.
Yeah.
Pay attention to what's going on. What are they watching and looking at on social media? It's so important. If you're feeling lonely, one thing you can always do, go and volunteer. Get out of yourself.
Yes.
I know during my depressed state, and I'm going to actually tell you, I think that's what helped me get through it. That's why I volunteer even so much today, because it's habit. I've learned to volunteer out of habit because I was so broken. All I knew, let me just go help somebody else. And this may sound negative, but in actuality, when I would see other people that was less fortunate than me, I was like, what are you sad for?
Yes.
Now, I will say this, where that did hurt me at as well, though, it allowed me to minimize what I was going through. It did. Because I said, ooh, they had a harder life than me. So, Aisha, you don't have nothing to complain about. Just keep on going. And I just kept on going till one day I gave out. Okay?
Yes.
Volunteering and giving back is great. But as I always say from the beginning, taking care of self is most important, okay?
It is. And look, you do have some questions that have come in. I don't know if you're ready for them now or...
No, yes, ma'am. Let's go. I love interaction. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, you were talking just a minute ago. I'm going to skip around a little bit on them. Question number 3, because it's really about 5 or 6 of them.
Okay.
One of the questions was, what are some ways that a person can de-stress? How can they handle the stress buildup?
So I'm going to talk a little bit, I guess, when we're talking about de-stress, we're already to that point of stress, right? So, you know, we backtracking. We got to get out of that. Some of the things that we can do, I just had it in my mind. Massages are great. Okay. Taking some me time. But what I found, and I'm going to talk a little bit about myself. A lot of times we don't feel like we have time for ourselves.
Yes.
We're so busy working, taking care of the husband, taking care of the family, doing everything else that we don't take care of ourselves. Okay. Yeah. And even a friend told me one time, she said, she told me I need to come and get a massage. Guess what I did?
What?
I sent my husband. I said, oh, he needed more than me. He working harder than me. And he works physically, but I work mentally.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know, and it took her to say, Aisha, come on now.
Exactly.
Get it together.
Mm-hmm.
When are you going to take time out for yourself?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So de-stressing. Number one is taking some of that self-care.
Yes. Yes.
Sometimes for me, it's going to get my feet done.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Even stressing for me, when I'm talking about spiritually and emotionally, I have to get deeper into my prayer life and meditation.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. It's not a cure-all, but for me, when I listen to gospel music and I get in my quiet space, it's like serene.
Yes.
Okay. But getting rid of the thing, getting that stuff out of our head, get whatever is going on, getting rid of it. Learn to say no.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's one of the things that we don't know how to do. We don't know how to say no.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Any other questions, Ms. V?
Yes. One of the questions was, this can be a very touchy topic. Mental health and the African American male.
So
how do you convince them? How do you
convince the Black male to get help? It's hard for them to go get help, period.
Yeah.
Okay. And let me say this: my biggest thing, and what I tell people, it's all about education.
Yes.
Okay. You cannot force anyone to do anything they do not want to do.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. That's just a fact. And one thing about it that I've learned, even if you do force them, if they don't want it, they're going to reject it anyway.
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But constantly giving them that information. And I like hardcore facts. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm good on researching something. Google and the internet has become our best friend. Mm-hmm. You can't say you don't know. So it's good to say, even like for me, convincing my husband to start having prostate exams was the hardest thing. Mm-hmm. He just was adamant, like, so I had to start talking about, this how many African American men are dying from prostate cancer. Yeah. Or even when he goes on his job and I'm the person that he comes home and vents to, mm-hmm. because he's dealing with racial tension and all this kind of stuff on his job, because we still dealing with that too, and that's stressful as well, right?
Exactly, very much so. Mm-hmm.
So we're talking about these kind of things, and I reminded him, I say, because he looked at me one day, finally I couldn't hold it anymore. He said, you act like you don't want to hear it. I said, it's not that. I say, but I'm dealing with my own stress from my job. I said, but this is why I told you about going to talk to somebody. Yeah. Yeah. Just reminding, constantly educating. Mm-hmm. It is not unnormal. That is one major issue in our community, is that our Black males do not want to seek healthcare, period. Yeah. And I think it just go back to those formative years of having to be strong. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Also those fears. So mm-hmm. many of us go and try to seek treatment, and then you're faced with so many barriers when you already didn't want to go in the first place. Exactly. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And as women, see, we're a little different. We build a little different, because even if we have those issues, we know to keep on going and knocking them down, because not only are we taking care of ourselves, we taking care of them babes, and everything else. Yes, yes. So we can't be stubborn and just say, hey, I ain't coming back. Mm-hmm. We got to break those walls down. Mm-hmm. So just keep educating your Black men. Mm-hmm. Because they're dying at alarming rates. I just really looked at those statistics a while back, and I was alarmed. I said, we are suffering and we are dying, and ain't nobody really talking about it. That leads me to another question. Mm-hmm. There was a question here about, why were
African Americans dying 2 times more than whites. Now, it asked during COVID, but anytime. Really.
Anytime. So when we discuss, and this is such a touchy situation and topic for me, and I'm going to say this because I've worked in the healthcare setting. I work for Franklin now, and it's so great to work for an organization that is geared to helping and serving our community. But I work for public health.
Yeah.
I've worked for community-based organizations that are geared towards people that are dealing with healthcare issues.
Yeah.
And I've seen it my whole career. I'm going on 25 years. I've seen it my whole career.
Yeah.
I've worked side by side with people of other races.
Yeah.
And I see how they treat their people when they come through the door versus how they treat us.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay?
Yeah.
And it's real.
Yeah.
It ain't nothing I just read on paper.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen it.
Exactly.
I've had to confront it.
Yes.
Okay? It is because of those kind of issues, the barriers of seeking health care, the mistrust. Because if I come in here and you treat me like that, why am I want to come back?
Exactly. Yeah.
Now I'm at home employing self-remedies and I'm suffering. I work in the healthcare setting and I have a mistrust in our healthcare system. I can give you instances where right before COVID, going into COVID, was it before COVID? Yeah, it was right before COVID.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to have a surgery that was long overdue. I had that surgery and it was outpatient.
Yes.
I had talked to the nurse of, doing your pre-planning, what medication she was going to give me. And she told me, we're going to give you 10 Norcos, pain medication. Yeah. Okay, I'm fine. They wake me up out of my sleep. I'm saying, oh, I'm hurting with Ms. Williams. We can't give you anything else. Your prescription is at the pharmacy. I get to the pharmacy and I got Tylenol 3s. Mm-hmm. And I just had extensive surgery. Mm. And I'm in pain. Yeah. On a Friday. And then when I called her, she says, no doctor will call you in anything. I was so upset. My husband said, please calm down. I said, oh, no, she don't know and understand. But see, because I work in a system like this and I know what can happen. Yes. I had me a few pills anyway. Yeah. Go through the weekend. I'm just being honest here. Yeah. But on Monday morning, I called the head nurse and my doctor, and I blankly told them that I don't feel that if I was not a person of color, that I would have been discharged in that manner. Where I had to suffer. And then on top of that, I said, ma'am, you expect for me, after you've taken out 2 cysts, you expect for me to just take Tylenol 3s? What should I do when I go through breakthrough pain? She said, ma'am, taking a leave. My discharge papers told me not to take ibuprofen, which is a leave, because it's a blood thinner. Uh-huh. So I'm saying it's those kind of reasons why we are suffering and we don't get the care that we need and we should. Yes. Preventive care. Yes. Okay. Yes. And so therefore that's the issue. Then comes the other barriers, the mistrust. Yes. We're always getting diagnosed at the end. I'm going to tell you another statistic that I found out about, osteoporosis. Yes. Who suffers from that mostly? White women. Who dies from it mostly? Black women. Go look it up. They suffer from osteoporosis at rates higher than us, but we're the ones that we die at a higher rate. And why would you say? I would say that is because normally we're the ones that we're getting diagnosed later in the stages. Okay. That has something to do with it, but it also has to do with good health care. Yeah. Many of us, African Americans, or even if we are insured, we're what you call underinsured. Yes. Okay. So even though I have insurance, you have given me these enormous co-pays and all this kind of stuff. Am I going to go and get treated? I can't afford the co-pay.
Can't afford it. Yeah. Yeah.
There are those barriers in place.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
They're still in place.
That's true. That's true. Let me ask you this, which kind of your last comments kind of lead me in that direction.
Okay.
What about the Medicaid expansion? How much better would that be for people, our population?
Sometimes this is why, see, now Ms. V, you get in a whole nother ring.
No.
And the reason why I say that is because that's why it's so important that we vote.
Yes.
And that we pay attention to people that are in power. And don't get me wrong, I do understand, hey, we're living in what you call a red state. Yes. Right now, it is controlled by Republicans. Yes. So therefore, right now, we do not have Medicaid expansion.
No.
But if we had Medicaid expansion, a lot of programs, a lot of healthcare programs and services that we currently don't have, they would be in place.
Okay.
Now, I'm going to say this. We're real fortunate in Mobile, Birmingham, and, in Montgomery, in the cities.
Yes.
But you go out in the rural, there's some places out there in the rural don't even have a hospital.
Oh, no. Mm-hmm.
When I sent my daughter off to Tuskegee, I moved her to Auburn in a year because I said, Lord, I had started hearing about children and even natives, that people that lived in the community died trying to get to the hospital.
Get to the hospital. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay. But even here, locally, our healthcare systems would be so much better.
Yeah.
I'm not going to get on here and talk about no facility, but our healthcare systems would be so much better if we had Medicaid expansion.
Yes.
Because once you have Medicaid expansion, what happens is then the feds come in and they throw in even more money into programming.
Yes. Yes.
But because we have a red state, they say, oh, we don't need that. Because guess what? Their folk are getting treated.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I even went to a town hall meeting years ago. And that's what, I think it was Bradley Byrne at this time. He said that, we asked about Medicaid expansion. He said, oh, y'all have Franklin Healthcare. Mm-hmm. And I am a supervisor there. I run a great program. However, let's be honest. If you had your choice of going to a clinic versus a private setting because you had insurance, what would most people pick?
Yes.
Do you see them coming into our neighborhoods, coming to Franklin?
Yes, I see. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And I will say this. Franklin, it has a great program.
Yes.
And we do accept people who have insurance. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
However, comparatively,
yes,
from what you get in the private sector, in the public sector is totally different. And it's just not, Franklin, I work for public health. It was the same way.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The only people that came to public health or the health department was poor folk.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. So someone, and I'm saying this, someone is not interested in helping poor people with their health needs if we continuously, year after year, not accepting or expanding Medicaid.
Okay, so what I'm hearing you say, Ms. V, is that we have people in power that are not as concerned about poor people in our community, because if they were, they would be putting the necessary resources in our community so that our health care and things can improve. Is that what I'm hearing you say?
Yeah, yes, exactly. Okay. Exactly.
And I do agree with that. And even though we have these people in place and, we have not been able to vote people in who, have our best interests at heart. However, your voice is still important.
Exactly.
Okay. And that's one thing where we miss the mark. Let me say something to you. Our counterparts, I don't care if you elect somebody in, whether they like them or not. If they're their leadership, they're going to hold them accountable.
Yes, they will. Yes, they will.
And that's just something that we don't do.
No.
As a culture. I think as a culture, we become complacent and we so used to just dealing with whatever is being dealt to us. You know, and that's a part of that resilience. It's not so much of a bad thing because we know how to make something bad be good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. But at the same time, that's what they've gotten used to. They've gotten used to that. We're not going to say anything. That what they're dishing out is okay.
Yes. Yes.
And so that's what I tell people. Even my consumers that come, come on, to the clinic and stuff. If you have a complaint, I want to hear it.
Yes.
You're important.
That's right. That's right.
Let your voice be heard.
That's right.
One other thing that I really want to push out to, and this goes with mental health, physical health, taking care of yourself. Please, because this is something that I've found. We don't ask enough questions. I just had one of my pharmaceutical reps meet with me last month. He was just talking about taking his grandmother to the doctor and how everything whatever the doctor said, she went along with it. Start asking questions about your health care. Okay. If your doctor does not want to give you the information, and I'm talking about health, your internalist or your mental health provider.
Yes.
Don't let nobody just give you medicine. Ask if there's an alternative. But if your physician has a problem with answering your questions, you have the wrong physician. You have the wrong physician. I had my doctor want to take me off my anxiety medicine, put me on depression medicine, and he wanted to do that. I know somebody probably came and saw him when the pharmaceutical company. I told him, I said, listen, at first I Googled it, but I said, okay, I'm going to try it for 30 days. And I went back after 30 days and I said, it is not working. Please put me back on what I was. Okay? Because see, what we do too, another thing, and I'm guilty of it, a doctor put us on something, we don't like it, we just stop taking it.
Yeah.
And that goes back to why we suffer at alarming rates.
Exactly.
Instead of going in there and verbalizing and saying, something you did is not right, it ain't working.
And the other thing too is we also have in our mindset that doctors are on these pedestals. And we're almost supposed to worship them. And of course, they will treat you in that manner too, because of previous experience with other patients, But, and we have to realize that they're human just like we are. And, they may be good in their area, but you're also good in your area.
Exactly.
So.
And I always tell people this, if you don't have the confidence or the capability, because I've been at that point too in my life, where, should I say this and would this be taken wrong?
Yeah.
But what I always tell people, if you can't do it, take somebody with you who will. I have a friend, very smart, many degrees, but every time she goes to her healthcare provider, she take me with her because she know I'm gonna ask questions.
Exactly.
What are those labs for? What you running here? Because see, I've been to the doctor too, where they'll put you in there and run everything they can on your insurance, and it's not about you.
Exactly. I understand.
Any more questions, Ms. V?
No, I think that takes care of them. You had a few others on here, but you touched on them in your presentation anyway, so I didn't ask them directly. But we do want to thank you for sharing your personal story. That's a great way of reaching out and touching people immediately look, this is what I've gone through. So, I can speak from experience. I
Yes,
can
ma'am.
speak from my mindset, from my perspective, which is a very, very interesting and very, very good way of reaching out to people, because your particular field in the mental health field is still not as acceptable with some of our folks. We're gradually moving in that direction. But a lot of times, and I'm sure you've heard it, where they'll say something like, "Oh, what can they do? What can she do? What can I can handle my own problems?" All of those kinds of things. And it's back to some of that mistrust from way back when that we brought forward and what have you. So I think being able to and being open enough to share your own personal experiences so people can say, "Oh, hey, she's gone through this. So she got to know what she's talking about." Or I can relate to her because she's gone through these things. So anyway, it has been a very interesting discussion. We are going to have to get you back later in the year. And maybe after we finish up with the New Year's holidays, maybe we can get back into the mental health, how it impacts the holidays. Because everything you see, all the commercials on TV or wherever, everybody's happy, everyone's having a good time, all the family members are getting along with each other, everybody's got plenty of money to spend on all kinds of presents for all of the family members. I'm talking about on TV now. So a lot of times people can look at that and judge themselves and think, "Oh, well, I'm a failure because I can't do this, or I can't buy all these presents, or I can't travel over here to see these relatives," and that kind of thing. So maybe after we get through the New Year's holidays, we could get you back to kind of give us some insight on how we can deal with, or how our audience can deal with the stresses and the depression and anxiety that comes along with the holidays. Some people are ready for them to be over because of those kinds of things.
That's true.
But anyway, we do appreciate you and thank you again. I know you have, I think she's going to run that at the bottom.
Well, I think someone may have had another question that is coming up. It says, are patients being made aware of having a patient advocate to help them with understanding health information?
Okay, good.
So oftentimes it depends on the facility. Normally, if it is a facility that assists people that are uninsured, say your health departments, Franklin, they have a Victory Health Partners out in West Mobile. But usually a lot of these type of entities will have a patient advocate or someone that you can discuss outside of the nurse and the physician. Because what I've even found as a patient myself, those providers are in and out.
Yes.
They don't have time for those questions as they once did. So most of the time they will have people on staff, but you have to ask, do you have a patient advocate? Do you have a social worker? Do you have a case manager on staff that I can discuss, my healthcare concerns with? Okay, that's one. Another one is finding that person in your community. Whether it may be through your church home. I work a lot in the community, so it's a lot of elderly people that I work with, or I ain't gonna say work with, but that I know and have grown relationships with. And I'm gonna be honest with you, they'll call me. And say, "Hey, what you think about this facility?" Or, "They just put me on this new medication. What you think about What you think about that? One thing about it now, I'm not a medical provider.
Exactly.
I am not a licensed mental health therapist. But what I do try to do is navigate people in the right direction.
Exactly.
Okay. And that is, hey, if you're not comfortable with what this doctor has diagnosed you with or how they want to treat you, let's see if there is somewhere else you can go. Okay. And sometimes that's even leaving the community.
Yeah.
If you're able, sometimes it's just leaving the area.
Yes.
Agencies, call different agencies. One of the agencies that I pointed out and I was hoping we could put up was Lifeline Counseling Center. But they do so much in the community.
She can get it back up for you.
Yeah, she just put it up there. Lifelines will definitely throw you a lifeline. I'm going to be honest with you. I've been dealing with them on and off for the last 20 years, and that is an awesome organization.
It is.
And even if they can't help you, they can pretty much steer you in a direction of someone who can.
Exactly. Okay. Well, thank you again. You have been a wonderful resource. And as I said before, we're going to try to get you back in after New Year's so you can help us kind of de-stress and get through all of the after effects of the holidays, because that's when the bills start rolling in. And
yes, ma'am.
Okay.
All right. Sounds good to me.
All right.
I wish everyone a great rest of their holidays. Let's be safe out there.
Yes.
Mentally and physically.
Exactly. Thank you and good evening. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. We want to thank you for being with us today. We had a very, very interactive interview today, and our presenter was fantastic. We will get her back at a later date. We want to wish you, as she said, a happy rest of your holidays and hopefully a blessed and happy new month that will be here in just a few more days. So good evening for us, and meet us here again next week, 4 o'clock, same place, same channel. Good evening.